I'm Amanda Snooks. I am a bodybuilder. Probably most people know me from that. I've been competing since 2009. Recently turned pro. So that's sort of the ins and outs of, my background. I'm also a model actor and competitive horseback rider. So
Nice. So, of all the kind of different things you mentioned there, was there one that kind of led you to the next one, or was it kind of individual things you just popped into, or how did that work out?
I've always been like a really active kid. All throughout school, I was in all kinds of competitive sports. And I was brought up an only child, so for me, I was trying to find something that was my passion, that was my love, that I could stick with. And I just found, every sport I would get into, I would, get bored of it and, go on to something else. So when we were in school, we had like a weightlifting, like a physical education type, where we had to work out in the weight room and learn things about, the weight room. And I sort of stuck with it, when I was a kid. And it wasn't until really in my 20s that I found bodybuilding and, started to really fall in love with it. It always worked out. I ended up meeting like a really good friend of mine, and he said to me, well, you should really start thinking about competing. And I was like, I don't really know much about it. And back then, all you had to do was read magazines to find, we didn't have the internet. So, I was reading about it and I'm like, I don't know if, I have what it takes. And he was like, well, just go to this fitness camp. And I don't know, a lot of people might know this lady, but Jen Hendershot, she was, a three-time Olympian in fitness, where they do a lot of like all of their stunts, backflips, and all kinds of things that were very gymnastics type background. And I was in gymnastics when I was younger, but I sort of fell out of it. And when I went to this camp, I got a hold of her and I thought, it seemed like this camp was sort of for people that had already been in competing. And she was very gracious and she was like, no, we would love to have you. And it was a camp for women. And I was in my early 20s then. And I felt like I needed a guide of some sort to take me on this journey. So I really didn't know what I was doing, but I, saw her compete and watched her. And back then it was on TV. And I used to watch her routines and just fall in love with, looking at, the stage presence she had and how vibrant she was. You could feel like her spirit on stage. And I was like, I want to really get into that. So I went to one of her camps for women. It was like a 3-day camp. And we learned so much about working out, about nutrition, about, just being self-confident. And at that time, when I was in my early 20s, I didn't really have confidence and I didn't really have a good self-esteem. And this story that I always tell people, which not a lot of people know unless they really know me and know like my background and where I came from, but I always looked at these magazines and wanted to be like them. And I didn't know how to get there. And so we were sitting around in a circle, and it was like an anonymous thing where you write on a piece of paper, what you don't like about yourself. And it was very interesting. And I feel like that was sort of where the light bulb, moment came to me. And I basically said I didn't like anything about myself. And she read, and it was anonymous. So, like, she read this comment to herself and she said, whoever wrote this comment needs to come and see me. And she didn't read it out loud. And that was something that has always stuck with me. That's when I knew that I needed to change not only my insides, but my outsides. And that's sort of where it all started. I learned to become a personal trainer. I dove into all kinds of information, got certified as a trainer, And then just prepped myself to do my very first competition.
So when you said you wanted to be like the people on the magazine and within those magazines, was that coming from like a physical as well as like a mental side of it too?
I did, yeah. I saw, just the confidence that they had, and that they were doing something that they were so passionate about, and you could tell it, by even looking at the magazines and telling how happy they were and how satisfied they were accomplishing their goals. And I knew that I not only had to change my outsides because I wasn't happy, but my insides too.
Yeah. I think that's such a common thing for people to, get into fitness. They think that, if I can just change what I look like, then I'll be happy. Are you a personal trainer, online fitness coach, or gym owner on the verge of burnout? Are you wanting to grow your fitness business but can't add more hours to your hectic schedule? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. They're together, but they're also so separate.
Yeah, they're linked in some form or fashion. I found that as soon as my body started to change, just in like a little way, and how I felt so strong in the gym, my mentality and my insides started to change. So they do have a link, but if you don't do the work, it's definitely not going to change anything.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the magazines, and I think that it's interesting because, you know, these days with so much more information on social media and just internet in general, YouTube and things like that, the information is endless, but it seems like maybe harder to sometimes discriminate from good and bad information, especially for those newer people, whether it's within the sport of bodybuilding or fitness or whatever. Do you feel like though that there is that even though the downsides of this may be more social media and things like that and information, what people are sharing, that there's almost the benefit of like you can get a more personal feel through social media, or you can maybe get a more sometimes a real feel if you're following the right people versus in a magazine it might be more edited down, it might be more somewhat more of the I don't want to say the glamorous side, but more of just like oh, that's a good looking picture. And then that's like a quick little, piece about that or whatever it may be. Do you feel like that there is that benefit though for social media from the aspect of maybe a more personal feel?
I think so, but I think you have to decide to follow the right people. And I think there's so much mass quantity of things that are out there that it's hard to determine, what someone who is going to inspire you and guide you in the right direction. Because this industry, because of the internet, you know, and the internet has made bodybuilding and the fitness industry, cool. And, I was doing it before it was even cool on the internet. So it's hard in that way because I think like everybody now wants to be a fitness influencer and, teach people. And that's great for, being, I guess, in the forefront and wanting, to inspire people, and that's great. But there's also so much misinformation and just people that are just really fake and not really true and genuine to themselves because they think that they need to edit their photos or, be some type of person that they're not in real life.
And even for yourself now, do you feel like that there's a process for you to where you're careful who you follow, even if you are aware of these things, like especially maybe during like a prep or something like that, when you have to be more just like cautious, like you're, where you're putting your energy and how it's kind of can be manipulated in some ways. Are you pretty cautious on social media, like who you're even following at this point?
I am and I'm not, I don't really, because I'm old enough to know that social media is not real. So during prep, yeah, it's a little, because it can really mess with your mind a lot. And I don't tend to give it a lot of energy. I post most of the time because, my coach, like during prep, my coach is like, you should post that, or, stuff that we're doing together, that he wants to showcase. And that's okay with me. But for the most part, I've never been the type of person when I get ready for a show to show my progress. Um, I've been and I guess it stems from like being in the older mentality of, when we were doing shows, we didn't have social media. So, you got ready basically what I'd call in the dungeon, and you show up this day of the show, and, everybody's shocked. And it's that kind of thing for me. So I'm just not someone that's like that I like to film in the gym or any of that. If you ever see like a video of me, it's more than likely that my coach has filmed it, because I'm not someone who like films or takes pictures in the gym. I'm just not that, the gym for me is like my second home, and, my church. So I feel like if I had to start doing that, it would definitely ruin how I feel about the gym, and it would ruin my workouts.
It does add like a little bit of a layer, even if it's subconscious.
For me, I can't even focus. Even when my coach films me, I can't. It's like I know that's on me, so it takes away from like the sort of intensity. It takes away from like my focus. So I've just never been that type. I've always trained like in the shadows and sort of, by myself. And, I've never really had workout partners or, people to motivate me, or, because I don't really believe in motivation. Motivation is fleeting, and it comes and it goes. So doing the same things consecutively, day in and day out is where, the work is going to come from, and the change is going to come from.
It's interesting because, before I really got into the sport of bodybuilding, as far as like really being a true fan of it and talking to athletes and things like that, I was a huge fan of Arnold and, watching the Generation Iron and things like that. And they would just be, talk about on the movie, like, what's this person doing? What's this person going to look like when they get there? Like all that kind of stuff. They didn't really know to a certain degree. And I
Yeah.
think that that's so cool and exciting, and, like, from an athlete perspective too. I mean, if you're I think you can look at it from different perspectives, but, like, if you're, like, the person that is maybe gonna win the show or probably gonna win the show or gonna be, in the top, it's like, does that give you a psychological advantage because you're not showing already, like, what that process is looking like? Is it getting into the heads of, and maybe that's not the purpose of it or, like, the meaning of it, but, like, is that gonna somehow get in the heads of the competitors and make them start to think like, "Oh, man, I haven't seen this person," or, "What are they looking like?" Or, they may start to, over exaggerate in their head so they, go off plan a little bit. And like I said, not that that's the intention behind it, but like I feel like that is somewhat part of that psychological warfare too that may not be as utilized today.
Yeah, and when I get ready for a show, I have to like limit the social media and stuff. And as an amateur athlete, it was not so bad, because there was not really a lot of shows that you would go to as an amateur where you do know who's competing. Unless the show itself would put out people and like put out a list. But now as a pro, you have to sign a contract, and they do put out a list. So that's something that is new and different for me. And you do have to, your mind plays games with you. You start to play the size game and be like, oh, am I good enough? you know um and all of that stuff. So the social media stuff really gets into your head, and then you start to compare, which is the worst thing that you can do.
Hmm. So taking us back in time a little bit to when you actually, first started to compete and train more for bodybuilding and things like that. Tell us a little bit about like what that first experience for you was.
My first show was in 2009. So back then I was going to college, and I didn't know if I could dedicate so much time to being in the gym and going to college, and all that stuff. I wanted to become a police officer, so I was going to school for that. And so I went through all these things, and again, back then they didn't have all of these coaches. They didn't have posing coaches. They didn't have, all of this stuff. And so, I was fortunate to have a lot of mentors that guided me. But I was coached by myself. So for a long time, I didn't have a coach. I just dove into all of this information and, what you're supposed to eat and, workouts and stuff like that. And I ended up meeting a few females in my gym who, became really good friends with, who was already, really into the game of bodybuilding and competing at a high level. And so she would give me advice, and I started to prep for my first show. And when I did my very first show, I did an all natural federation because I wasn't sure, where I wanted to go at that point. Um, and it was interesting because, the very first show, especially if you don't have a coach or you don't have guidance, it is so like nerve wracking because you're backstage and you see all these girls with their coaches, and they all look like they know what they're doing, and getting ready backstage, and I'm just here by myself. And I'm like, oh well, wonder like I didn't even know if I was posing right, to be honest, because they didn't have posing coaches. We would go to shows and like watch videos and critique and make sure that we were posing, but we didn't really know how to pose back then. So, and then same thing. It's like you're tanning. We used to tan each other and spray tan everything, and paste it on and hope it looked good. uh, just like so many things. So backstage, it was very nerve wracking for me. I was wondering if I was doing everything correctly, or and then you look at everyone and you're like, I don't really belong here. So um but I stepped on that stage and I was like, you know what, I got the bug, and I knew this is what I wanted to do, and I wanted to just improve and see how far I could get my body. And, it went from there, really.
So I think in anything, there's probably like a best way to go about doing something, or a blueprint, if you want to call it that. Or you could look back and say, if I knew this information, or if I did have this coach, I could, have gone into this show with more whatever, could have looked a different way or whatever. But with that being said, do you think that there's like a level of advantage when it comes to just like the experience of doing things the wrong way?
I think so. Over the years, just trial and error and trying different diets and, all that stuff, I found, things that worked for me, and I really learned my body. And I don't think that, having a lot of people that maybe have a coach, they don't know their body just as well. So I started just really researching and learning things and trying like different diets and seeing what my body likes. And everybody's different, everybody's genetics is different, so what one thing that works for someone won't work for someone else. And um, I think that it made me want things more. I think I learned so much about myself, so much about my body. And it just made me work harder and be tenacious and want everything so much more, I think.
So after that first show, and going on to maybe the next year, a couple of years after that, are you a personal trainer who wants to scale and grow your business online? Have you been coaching online for years, yet don't know how to incorporate online into your current business model? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. What are some of the things that maybe you figured out, like some of the biggest things, whether it be with training or diet or whatever it may be, that you started to learn and then started to implement, and then you started to see some big results start to happen?
I just found out, like I said, the diets that work for me. My body really, I'm very like carb sensitive, so I just there was a lot of things that I learned along the way. I knew I was always sensitive to whey proteins and lactose. And, like a few years ago, actually, I had a food sensitivity test done. So that just reiterated what I already knew. But then there were some things on there that I didn't know either. So that's always things that, to keep in your arsenal, good things that you don't have to wonder or eliminate all these foods to try to guess what, foods you're sensitive to or what you're, allergic to in some form or fashion. And I was always someone who trained hard, intense, and heavy. So, I mean, I remember a powerlifting coach tell me that he has watched me train for years and that I should do a powerlifting meet. And I was like, yeah, that's not really my thing. Like, it's kind of counterproductive of what I do. And he was like, well, I think you would break a lot of records by the way you train. So I'm just used to training with a lot of weight, a lot of just the basics, squats, deadlifts, that type of thing, a lot of the basic exercises. And, things nowadays people want to try and reinvent the wheel. And it's like, you just need the basics.
With the diet side of things, it's interesting that, you talk about food sensitivities. How did you specifically overcome, a carb sensitivity as well as a whey protein sensitivity? I mean, those two right there, it seems like it would be footholds for the bodybuilding world, right? So, I mean, what are some things that you did to help overcome that?
Yeah, a lot of, when I started with my coach a year ago, I had told him, like, I did these food sensitivities and this is what it shows. And, even stuff like eggs and egg whites, that's like, the basics of bodybuilder diets
Yeah.
was, you're sensitive to. So it was just kind of like taking away a lot of stuff. Luckily, a lot of the meats and stuff that I do eat, I'm not sensitive to, thankfully. So a lot of it was just removing like eggs or egg whites and sort of implementing, a different meal that was meat based. I don't really ever rely on protein shakes. I never have. So that was never really a big thing for me. I just knew that, I tried for probably 15 years to find something that, my digestive system liked and I didn't feel bloated and I never could. And the food sensitivity test, basically showed me that, yeah, you are sensitive to lactose and, that's why you can't. Because there was times I used to love eating like Greek yogurt and stuff like that. And it just, over time, when you age too, people don't realize that your body changes so much. And when we're on, like I've been on these diets for, 20 plus years or something, your body just adapts to certain foods. And then it's like, nope, we don't want that anymore. It doesn't function the same. Just implementing certain things into the diet. I did take out chicken only because I just feel like, I said to my coach, I didn't feel like it actually digested the same anymore. So I mean, we function real well on like lean ground beef and turkey. So, those things weren't really that big to me, but there was things like peanut butter in there that I really enjoyed. So I have it once in a while. I try not to, eat things that, my body doesn't like, but
Where did it translate? Whether, was it sleep? Was it being able to maybe train a different or harder way? Or like where were the benefits to figuring that stuff out?
I think mostly I saw it in my physique just physically. Because I came to my coach really, really frustrated because for years I was doing things that were very successful and I was very successful at it. And on stage, it showed very successful. And then, my body has started to get into my 40s and my body started to really change. And so I don't know whether, like your metabolism just slows down, your hormones are doing like funny things. And um, I just, the things that I was doing previous to coaching myself were no longer working. So I came to him super frustrated and was like, this is what I was doing. And it was really successful, up until this point. And now, it's not. And I was having, I wasn't sleeping very well. And, I felt just, I couldn't recover from my workouts. So like a little bit of brain fog and stuff like that. And then come to do the sensitivity test, I found out, what my body really was doing and sort of what to stay away from, which I always suggest is super, super helpful. Cause like I said, you never want to, I mean, it's a guessing game until you have that done.
Hmm.
So it's always an amazing sort of resource to have, because that way, I mean, and you can even do ones now where you can um, test your blood type, and they will tell you what foods your blood type actually likes.
Hmm.
So, there's so many resources now that we never used to have. Once we changed my diet, you could definitely see like training was better, sleep was better, and then just the overall physical look. We got an amazing different result. Probably the best stage look that I've ever had was this year. So just by changing my diet.
Wow, that's pretty exciting to say that, being in the sport over a decade and, you're getting your best look now. I mean, what does that mean to you moving forward?
The sky is the limit, really. I mean, I just personally, I was so frustrated because I was doing it all for myself and coaching myself. And like I said, for years, and my body just started to change. And I didn't know, I didn't have that knowledge to be like, okay, this is what we need to do. So I coached myself up into this point and was like, now I really need help. And, just some tweaks here and there that he had to do. So really, I mean, I feel like the sky is the limit with basically the competition, and getting like I'm not even tapping into like really what my true potential is. I think the people that are, in their 40s right now are the people that are destroying the competition in bodybuilding. There's of course there's plenty of athletes that are, in their 20s or whatever that are at the top of the game too. But I feel like, the masters athletes, the 40 and up, they men and women right now are just getting better.
Being in the sport for, over a decade, whether you're, coached by somebody or kind of how you did it the majority of time, by yourself, what were some things that you did to keep the possibility of competing next year in mind, talking about longevity and whether it be the performance side, or the health side. Were there specific things that you did that you kept in mind in the present to be successful, but also in the future to have that possibility?
I think too, being a female, I don't really know much about like the male side of PEDs, and stuff like that. But off season, just doing your blood work and making sure that your health is good inside, and making sure that you come off everything completely, and give your body a break. And especially for females, making sure that they have their cycle, is huge. And, a lot of things like that. And I'm thankful that my coach, you really pays attention to my health. And then he puts that, above everything. So I couldn't be happier, with where we're at right now and just the healthy side of things. But I think, a lot of it is that. A lot of it is, keeping all of the recovery methods intact, whether it's, massage therapy. I have a few massage therapists that I keep, a chiropractor, just staying mobile, staying healthy, and then mentally just staying above board and keeping your mentality and your mental health in check too.
Hmm.
A lot of times I make sure that I'm getting out and doing a lot of things that aren't bodybuilding related. I don't, a lot of people don't have anything else going for themselves besides bodybuilding. And off season, especially, like prep is very, very all encompassing. You have to be locked in and make a lot of sacrifices. So off season, I really try to, spend a lot of time with my friends and family, and do a lot of things that, during maybe a prep, I would put on the back burner, making sure that I have other goals in life besides that. And, like I said, spending a lot of time with the ones that I love. Bodybuilding, the stage will always be there. What's most important is your health. And if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. So
But is it harder when you're finding success to take that step back that you do need to still take?
it definitely is. And it has been for me in like the past, 5 years or so, because I was constantly just right on the cusp of getting my pro card.
Mhm.
So, they're dangling the carrot and, I would miss it by a point. Um, and it forces you to be like, okay, well, if I do this other show, or if I go here and do this prep, and that I'm just going to achieve it. And you know um sometimes you're doing a detriment to yourself, because most importantly, it's about your health. And now that we have finally achieved that status this year, it's going to be different for me to take a step back and sort of be like, okay, well, we did what we said we were going to do, and
Mhm.
now it's time for an off season, and have you go. Because I was never the type that would have like a typical off season, like a whole year, because I was constantly chasing my pro card. So I was constantly in a caloric deficit. And then, I would come out of a show, and then maybe we'd have like a 2 or 3 months where we kind of eat normal and we kind of go into an off season, but then we get it ready for another show. So you're tearing down your body all the time, and you're not building it.
Right. This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. You mentioned it there, but getting your pro card, turning professional, what does that mean to you? Like, does that change not necessarily change your like seriousness about it, or change like your drive about it, but does it change the way that you approach it and the way that you do it and like how you represent it maybe?
Only, I would say only this for me, because of the way that I have lived my life. I've lived my life as a pro for the last 10 or 15 years. So it was just having the accolades behind me to make it super official. um but it doesn't change me as a person or an athlete, because I still train the same, I still eat the same, I still consistently am at the gym. It almost, for me, because I've been working so hard at it for so many years, it doesn't feel real yet, because I have been working at it for so long. But no, I mean, there's tons of friends that I have that, before they even really knew me or knew about me, thought I was a pro. Just because of the way that I do live my life and the way that I carry myself. And I think the old adage is, if you want to be a pro, you have to act like a pro. And I have been for a long time. So it's just kind of nice to feel like, oh, we finally achieved what we set out to do.
Do you feel like that there's almost a pressure for you to like achieve or to do something to like take it to that next level at all? Like whether it's real or not, is there that perceived necessity to do more and extra and win and these things versus because you are here versus like, well, if I didn't get there, then people will understand. But now that I'm here, it's like they think there's this expectation that I should continue to win.
I feel like there definitely is pressure. For me in particular, I've always been the underdog, which, you know what, people have always slept on me, and it's great, because you know why? People don't see you coming. And that's the best part about it. People never thought I was going to become pro. I mean, of course, I had so many supporters and friends that believed that it was always going to happen. And those were the people that I kept in my circle. But there's so many people out there that didn't believe that would happen for me, didn't believe that I could achieve it. So now that we have, there is a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure to be different. There's a lot of pressure to, win. There's a lot of pressure even now, once you get your pro card, they're saying, what's next? When's your pro debut? You're always put in the hot seat as to, what you're doing, when you're doing that. So I definitely feel the pressure. And it's going to be, it's going to happen. We're going to reach the top, and with the coach that I have, I'm very confident that it's definitely going to happen. So, but it definitely, I think that once you do become pro, even though it hasn't, been a whole long time for me since I became pro, you definitely feel it. That's for sure.
Looking into the future, I mean, is there that like the plan of let me go do my first show and see how things kind of pan out, and then we'll slightly reevaluate if necessary, or is it like we're taking this into like a 2 or a 3 or a 4 year plan, and then we're gonna, because we kind of have like this vision of what we can do and what we want to do and where we want to be. What more is it for you at this point?
I have a vision of what I want to look like on stage, and it's definitely not what I look like now. So that's definitely going to take some time. We're going to take some off-season time to achieve what we really want. I'm going from physique to bodybuilding, so I know that I do need a lot more size, just everywhere to level out my frame. And I've never really given my body a chance to truly grow into its frame. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And, it depends on how long that really takes. However long it takes is however long it takes. I'm really honestly in no rush um, to step on stage and be that. Whenever we're ready is whenever that is. Could be a year from now, could be 2 years from now. I don't really know yet. But we've really just started the off season. So like I said, the sky's the limit.
Best of luck in the near future, and looking ahead to whenever you do step on stage. It's very exciting to think about that pro debut and what things look like. But like I said, best of luck, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And if you want to, before we head out, share any social media or anything like that, you can.
Well, my social media is Amanda Snooks, IFBB Pro. And you will find everything there. My coach, he's in my bio. So if you want to know anything or have any questions, you can DM me.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.